distracting. See, I hate doing video in English because you can understand what I'm saying and what mistake I make. So it's like... Hello mọi người, mình là Kim, and in this video I'm going to be speaking English because I'm going to share with you some of my tips to speak better English. As usual, I'm going to start my video with a disclaimer because we all have different standards for what better English means, and for me it basically means that you can communicate what you mean very fluently without struggling to get the words out. And obviously, if you've watched my previous video where I shared my English learning journey, you would know that I have not always been this fluent. But I hope that after watching this video, you would at least get some starters on how to improve your own English speaking skills. In terms of listening, obviously anyone who studied English have heard that advice at least once before, that the more you listen, the better you speak. But I have not seen many people clarifying on what to listen for. I personally believe that you have to listen actively when you want to improve your speaking skills. For example, when you're watching a TV show, really pay attention to everything that's being said. I know that a lot of people would watch the show with English subtitles just to know what is happening, like what's being said, to follow the plot lines, but I think the more important thing is to pay attention to the intonation, the ways that each sentence is being said and what it means. When you say, what are you talking about versus what are you talking about? Like the difference in the intonation basically means two different things. And if you pay attention very closely during the listening process and really put a lot of effort into learning the subtlety of intonations and the way that simple phrases can be delivered, I think that that's going to improve your fluency and help you deliver what you mean a lot more closely, as opposed to simply learning the meaning of the sentence. My second tip is to forget all of the rules. Now, these rules include grammar and pronunciation rules. I have to get this off my chest. I reckon that English is a very weird language. There is very little rule to it. I really hate the way that Vietnamese schools teach English, where they give you these formulas, as in like, you know, subject plus verb plus this, that, the other thing. Or I remember when I was taught how to pronounce the ed at the end of words that are in past tense. Now you know how some words you pronounce it as a T and then some words you pronounce it as a D. I until now still haven't memorized all of that, and I think that those rules are a distraction when you try to speak English fluently. I think you should learn each of the words or the phrases that are being used separately, how they're being delivered by the person talking to you, and just repeat. You just learn by listening and repeating over and over again, because at the end of the day, that's how a little baby would learn to speak English. No one will actually try to teach it what is a verb or a noun, and it definitely cannot read before it can speak. So I believe that in order to speak English fluently, you have to let go of some of the rules. Just really try to learn by heart what you have listened, what you have encountered, and try to imitate to the best of your abilities. At the end of the day, that's how you will improve on your vocabulary and your pronunciation. For this tip, what I mean is that instead of learning separate words and how to say them very properly, you should actually learn English in full phrases and sentences, because at the end of the day, all you're trying to do when you learn English is to be able to use it in full sentences. So what's the point of learning separate words when, one, they're gonna sound a little bit different in different contexts and in different sentences anyway, and two, there are already certain combinations of words that are very popular and very familiar to the native English speakers. So when you use that exact combination of words, native English speakers will just be able to understand you easier. One little trick you can do is that you can even learn by heart some conversation starters, so that when you meet with a new person, you can just rattle off these phrases. Like when I was in Australia, anytime I meet a new person, I would just say, hey, how's it going? That has kind of become a reflex for me. If I just, walk into a shop or walk into my workplace and there are co-workers there, and that kind of set the tone for the conversation, as everything will flow smoothly after that. To me, English is a tool that you have to learn how to use day by day, and your skill set will get built upon every single time you try to utilize it. So instead of having the mindset of a student who are always trying to not make mistakes, always trying to, do the right thing so that you can score a better test result, I suggest that you actually just go out there and use English. These days, there are a lot of different ways that you can use English to communicate with others. This actually links back to one of my lessons in my English learning journey, which is to be immersive. I really believe that when you have to use English to communicate out of necessity, your brain will alternate the way that it thinks and allows you to improve the speaking skills. Like the human brain is really great in the way that it will accommodate whatever needs that you have. And I find that in times of need, my brain never lets me down. There will be phrases or words that I don't even remember how I accumulated that would just come to my rescue when I need to communicate certain things, and eventually these things will just come very naturally to you whenever you need it. And then even in times when certain words or phrases aren't coming to you in times of need, what you gotta do is try to explain it in a different way so that people will understand. For example, if I need to say that something is cheap, but I don't remember cheap, I only remember money, expensive, or a bunch of other money related words, I would just say this is something that's really not expensive. It means the same thing, and it forces your brain to think in English instead of falling back into finding the translation in Vietnamese and then try to turn it back into English. That step there will kind of short circuit your brain and you won't be able to communicate as fluently. Whereas I've had this situation happen to me a lot of the time where I would just say, something that's really not expensive, how do you say it? And then, my boyfriend or my friend or my co-worker, whoever I was talking with, would just tell me, oh, you mean it's really cheap? I would be able to remember that word a lot longer because it has that context. And one last tip, obviously very important, is do not be afraid to make mistakes. I think that because we're learning English as a second language, we're always self-conscious about how we sound and the mistakes that we make, but trust me, I live with a native English speaker and he makes more mistakes than I do. And I have met people who are, professors, communication specialists, people who are professionals in the, public speaking or communications field, and they still make mistakes because sometimes you have to try a few times to find the best way to communicate, and there's nothing wrong with that. Personally, I know that I've made a bunch of mistakes in this video as well. With the power of editing, I hope that I wouldn't leave too many in there, but it's inevitable. And especially in real life, you're just gonna make mistakes. That's just the reality of things. What matters is how you recover after you make that mistake. So just be aware of when you make a mistake, be appreciative when others correct you, but also just don't be afraid. Just really embrace these mistakes, because every time you make mistakes, you would be able to learn from it and improve for the next time. Eventually, hopefully, the mistakes won't repeat itself. I actually am still struggling with some of the same mistakes that has been very deeply wired in my brain up until this day. But like I said, I live with a native English speaker and he doesn't seem to have any problem understanding me, so that's a plus. So that's it for all of the tips I have for you today on how to improve your English speaking skills. I hope that it's really helps you out. If you have any tips, share them with me in the comments below, because I am by no means stating that I'm the best English speaker out there, and learning English is a never-ending journey. Thanks for watching until this point of the video. I hope it's been helpful, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel because I'm gonna upload a new video on the channel every week. I also have 2 podcast series, Những Câu Chuyện Làm Ngành and Memo Rants, and I will leave the links to them all below, and I will hopefully see you guys very soon in the future. Bye!